Most of you may have noticed that I tend to start sermons off with humor, and try might be the operative word. Humor is a holy thing in my book. Somewhere along the line, I've mentioned before that I attended a seminar where Rabbi Lawrence Kushner said, "Religion without humor is blasphemy," meaning that God is certainly in all of life and shines more particularly in the good and the joyful. And if we stifle humor in our faith, we do a great disservice to God and to ourselves. In my experience, humor can serve to mediate the sacred. It can open up a portal to God, and to not allow that is a form of blasphemy. Humor is a good and godly gift. And in our many months together, we've done more than have humor break the ice at the beginning of sermons. From time to time, we've explored in some of our Bible lessons humor. It can be found in both the Old Testament and New, and Jesus can even be funny too. You may recall that we discussed that Jesus' donkey ride into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday can be heard as Jesus using humor to protest Rome and the pomp and circumstance arrival of Pilate with his royal troops on a showy martial ride into Jerusalem. As Jesus rode in from the opposite side, literally and figuratively as God's true king without material wealth and armed conscripts, but riches in love and blessings and devoted followers. Nowadays, we imagine Jesus' ride focusing on the hosannas, not the humor. But it's pretty clear that the humor is there, lampooning Caesar's emphasis on violent shows of force and wealth with what God really wants as shown. Humble leaders who lead people joyfully with and toward the good and God, justice, and kindness. Most of us probably do not picture Jesus as humorous. He's not usually seen as a funny guy. We've talked about this a bit in our Talking About God classes, which we'll hold today again in the chapel. We've talked about how in movies, Jesus is almost always portrayed as gentle, loving, and wise, but kind of humorless. And so the Jesus in our films is likable enough, but not very funny at all. And the Jesus we grew up with and heard about in churches like that too. It's the Jesus that we most often picture in our mind's eye. And I think that is unfortunate. Jesus' story as a whole, with all of its tragedy of human conduct and the glory of God's presence and power, can still also be heard as having humorous edges and angles without taking any of that other stuff away. If nothing else, there is great irony that Jesus, an expendable nobody to Rome, a nobody Rome sought to crush and destroy, in the end outlives the Roman Empire and eventually becomes venerated and worshipped by Roman emperors and all of the Roman Empire and a goodly portion of the rest of the world, even to this day. The story on this one level has a cosmic, loving, almost Chaplin-esque-like character besting a rich, big bully. In real life, the underdog ends up winning one for us all. And in retrospect, with the distance of time, the gospel story has the ultimate ironic end, but the story can also be heard as beginning with ironic ends, the edges that we have also discussed as well. Caesar Augustus was considered in the Roman culture to have been born of a virgin with a father who was a god. That was Rome's religious story. Caesar Augustus was believed to have been a god and even known as Savior, Son of God, Lord, and Bringer of Peace. And the authors of Matthew and Luke cheekily co-opt these stories about Caesar, and they twist them around in supreme contortions, taking the stories about Caesar and making them applicable to the peasant Virgin Mary and her peasant infant son, Jesus. The Christmas story is about the God of real peace, choosing a non-Roman power elite, somebody of very low-class origin, as the real life bringer of peace. This cleverly knocks down Caesar's story. At the same time, it lifts Jesus' story up when he is conceived and when he is born. And consequently, Jesus ends up as a reversed mirror image of Caesar by birth story and name for name. Caesar's earthly seat of power made him eligible to be worshipped as a god to the Romans. Jesus' heavenly birth made him all the more worthy since he came from the one God of love, the God of not just the Romans, but the God of absolutely everyone. Choose your way to God. The nativity story can be heard to say Rome's violent peace through Caesar or God's just peace through Jesus. This big, bad, mighty, wealthy Caesar is bested by a humble, poor, frail baby boy born in a stable. An infant peasant is sent to defeat Caesar and dies. That's got some humor to it. My little baby Jesus, that's your big, macho Augustus. And Jesus did the same kind of co-oping in his life. That's where his followers likely picked it up. The Romans had these elite meals that only wealthy men were invited to. They were all the rage. Anyone went to them. So what does Jesus do? Talk about cheeky. He makes everyone someone by having meals that everybody is invited to. He co-opts the meal idea for all. Poor, rich, oppressed, powerful, sinners, enemies, neighbors, foreigners, men, women, children, all get to come to Jesus' table. And this catches on. And churches around the world for millennia have celebrated the awesome meal ministry of Jesus at the Lord's Supper, a meal that we celebrate here every month. And it's not just the meal idea that Jesus judo flips for everyone. We've talked about how Rome ran on a patron system with people owing their allegiance to patriarchs, father figures above them in the system. So what does Jesus do? He takes a little used pronoun for God, Father, and he turns it into the name that he most often calls God. Rome wants its people to give allegiance to patriarchs, their patron fathers, but Jesus spins this completely around by calling his followers' allegiance to a patriarch, all right. God as Father, the only patriarch anyone will ever need. And then he does something even more amazing. He makes sure that we understand not only God as a patron father, but as Abba, which means daddy, loving, close, personal father. Certainly we're meant to smile more than a little at these ironic twists in the Jesus stories. And looking through the Gospels, we can find a lot of other humorous acts or sayings by Jesus and about Jesus. You see, it was the nature of not only Jesus, but his followers to smile and have humorous moments and record and remember them and retell them. And I'm going to rattle off just a few more of them. Hyperbole or exaggerated images or descriptions is a form of humor. Today's reading about fishermen is a great example. Jesus tells some fishermen who are soon to be his disciples to throw their nets in the water. And having just returned from a failed outing, they're told, Jesus has told me, try already all night. No luck. But they try again, to whom humored Jesus, and like a cartoon story, when they pull in their nets, there are so many fish where there were none, that their boats began to sink. Listen to this story. Luke's community would have smiled at the picture the story paints of the tired fishermen being told to try one more time by the layperson Jesus, and the surprise they get with the overburdened boats loaded to the gills, so to speak, with fish. We hear Jesus use exaggeration in his teachings. One of his most famous is meant to conjure up a funny image. Picture what Jesus is literally portraying when he asks, why do you see a speck in your neighbor's eye, but don't notice the log in your own. Or here's one worthy of being in what we used to call Saturday morning cartoons. In Mark, Jesus says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. And he meant us to picture a large life-size camel going through the eye of a teeny tiny real needle. It's meant to be a funny image. And perhaps my favorite exaggerated image of humor from Jesus is found in Matthew 23, when he accuses religious leaders of being hypocrites for neglecting justice and mercy and faith while worrying about little unclean bugs in their wine. Jesus says, you strain out the gnat, but swallow a camel. That's a funny image. And culturally, camels were unclean like gnats, only obviously much, much bigger. Jesus is using humor to point out there are big camel-sized worries not being tended to, and these guys are worried about dinky things, petty legalities instead of poverty, oppression, and other injustices. I like this little Jesus joke because it not only takes on petty squabbling while there are big problems that really need our attention, but in Aramaic, Jesus' native tongue, it also has a pun. Jesus was a punster. How cool is that? Gnat in Aramaic is gamma. Camel is gamma. This is supposed to be funny. Straining gamma and swallowing gamma. Puns may not work so well in translation. The closest I could get in English is you strain out the dinky while swallowing the donkey. Dinky, donkey, gamma, gamma. Wordplay. Jesus does wordplay. He does it with Simon, too. In the story, it's there. First of all, fishermen as fishers of men is a nice, clean pun. And it turns out that Simon in the Gospels is not always so solid a disciple. He's sometimes unsteady and slow to get what Jesus means. He loses faith. He disagrees with Jesus. He even denies that he will deny him and then denies him. This not so solid fellow, Jesus renames Rock, which translates as Peter. And there are at least two levels of wordplay in the name. The obvious is Jesus founds the church on the rock of a rock. But there is also the irony that the unsteady Peter is called Rock. Kind of like calling me youngster. It doesn't fit. And so it's funny. There's not just this punny stuff. Humorous satire and irony is found throughout Jesus' sayings. He deflates elitism with satirical statements of the obvious. When Jesus first starts his ministry, the religious elite give him grief for tending to the sinners. And Jesus notes the obvious, that healthy people don't need doctors, do they? The righteous don't need tending to. The sinners do. Jesus also notes how the self-righteous show off piety with public prayers and long faces while fasting and wearing religious items and taking places of honor. They worry about small things like gnats and ritual washings and showy things when there are real problems like oppression, malnutrition, war, and violence. Do as the religious elite teach from the Torah, not what they teach by action. Do as they say, not as they do. Jesus points out there are hypocrites, snakes, and vipers, brood, kind of scary yet funny animal images that fit of the religious elite. Jesus is often besting the religious elite with the obvious. For example, Jesus notes that the Sabbath's for humanity, not the other way around. He notes that we don't pick figs and grapes off of weeds, but fruit-bearing trees. And he says this a lot. Those of you who have ears to hear need to listen. Obviously, that's what ears are for. And Jesus also makes the religious elite respond with humorous results, often balling them up with their own thinking. When they ask, was John the Baptist from man or from God? He says, you tell me. And they can't, for fear of taking a stand. If we say man, then the people will be angry. If we say God, then we have defied God. And so they look goofy as they opt for the answer. We don't know. When the religious elite try to get Jesus in trouble over who to pay taxes to, Jesus has them give him a coin with Roman emperor's head on it. And Jesus says, whose head is on this coin? And they state Caesar. And he responds, well, pay who is on your coin, your earthly boss, what you owe him. But don't forget to pay God what is owed to God. The trap the elite set for Jesus goes off on them, making them look foolish since they fail to pay God what they owe God. Plus, they're found to have the false image of Caesar, an idol, in their pocket. Jesus' longer stories, there's much humor too. In the Good Samaritan, the religious elite walk on by the wounded, only to be bested by the unexpected better man, the lowliest of the low, an ordinary Samaritan who in truth is like ordinary Israelites. It is that person, the one that they're trained to see as the hated enemy of Israel, not the religious elite who makes a good neighbor. We talk about ironic. And there's the prodigal son who leaves home, squanders his money, and ends up not just working with unclean pigs, but longing for pig food. He comes home to a father whose love is so profound for his son that it is shameless. To the eyes of the culture, that dad, that Abba, is a fool for love. To the dismay and confusion of his other son, the dad loves his wayward brother and honors him. He lets go of cultural expectations and chooses to be a fool for love, for God. And so that's just some of Jesus' humor. But I want to end with one more bit. Jesus' teachings belie expectation of heaven being a kingdom of gold and highfalutin stuff. It messes with our mind. Heaven is like a mustard seed. A mustard seed that grows to be the greatest of shrubs. In other words, heaven is a tenacious seed. That's so far from what we think. Heaven, like a mustard seed, a shrub? You gotta be kidding. Jesus was kidding, in the sense that he wanted us to smile at his images as well as remember his teachings. Heaven's a weed. It's not what a lot of humans want. It's what God wants. A place here and now where all get enough all the time. A place of well-being, of peace for everyone. It's a far cry from Rome and many other earthly powers once. Funny thing, heaven. In the Old Testament, Job 8 notes that God fills our mouth with laughter. Jesus often does that if we just look for it in many of his stories. And we have a partner in that laughter. As we heard in the invocation, Psalm 2 tells us that God sits in heaven and laughs. Jesus was an extraordinary man in so many ways. He experienced a lot of serious and tragic events, but he did not let that stop him from filling other mouths with laughter. Psalm 100 tells us to worship the Lord with gladness. And Jesus set that example out for us, how to do it. And it's not just worship at church, that it's okay for us to be glad and smile and laugh, but in dealing with all sorts of trouble, from hypocrites to petty, literal, biblical enforcement, to rough times, to just life in general. The good news to take home today is that it is okay to laugh in life, to find humor in life, to see humor in the Bible and the gospel stories, and to hear it on the lips of Jesus. The good news is that the Bible is full of humor, including the stories of Jesus, including Jesus himself many times. We should not be afraid to find it in either of those sources or in our own lives. Humor, you see, is a good and godly gift, and we are meant to enjoy it.